my name is Jeremy Finn. I'm the GM for Pieces of Fate, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what I do to prepare for a game. Obviously, the most important part of a role-playing game is the story. So, as the GM, my responsibility is to know that story. Since I'm using a pre-published adventure, I have to kind of keep my eye on the story arc. So, you've got your long-term story arc, which is this 6-volume set, right? And then your short-term is just what's happening right now. And this is even broken down to chapters. So I'm focused tonight on just what's going to happen in the next, couple of days in the game world. But I have to keep my mind on the whole story arc and what's happening throughout the entire Skull and Shackles campaign. Two of the most important parts of the story are the NPCs and the setting. I need to be familiar with both of those things. Skull and Shackles is pretty easy right now for the setting because they're literally on a pirate ship, so I just have to know about the wormwood, which I do. And as far as NPCs go, well, there's a lot of them. So what I've done is I've kind of compiled my list of NPCs, and you can see here that I have the NPC picture, which I can use to show to the players so that they recognize that face. When they're interacting with a lot of non-player characters, it's important that they have kind of a face to associate with a name. Otherwise, it's just my face all the time, and nobody wants to look at that. So you can see I've got my NPCs here, and there's a lot of them because there's a lot of characters on this pirate ship. But something that I've done here is created these cards so that I can keep track of the names and which character goes with which voice and some kind of a catchphrase. And usually this is not something I actually say out loud, it's just something that lets me get into that character's voice. Sometimes I give them a quirk, I might list some skills, and then of course their starting attitude, whether they're helpful, friendly, indifferent, unfriendly, or hostile. And then if there's any notes I want to add to that, I can just do that here. Like the characters, the setting or the location of the story is also very important, and I have to be able to narrate that and express that in a way that it paints an image in my player's mind. So I often write little notes, like for example, the first thing they're going to see tonight when they wake up in the hold of the ship is obviously the bars and the other prisoners that are there, but I also want to emphasize those 5 senses, right? I want to emphasize the smell of vomit because many of these people are throwing up, and the sound of the creaking of the wood and those kinds of things that create that atmosphere. As a GM, I also really like that aspect of the role-playing hobby that involves building the terrain. A lot of people do like building their own terrain, and I've been fortunate enough to be a backer on a Kickstarter campaign for Shipworks by Dragon Workshop. It's a bunch of 3D printable files that you can print these pieces out and assemble them into a cool pirate ship. And so you can build pretty much anything that you can imagine with this set. So I've been printing stuff for months now, and then assembling it kind of like Legos. It's an open lock system, and I have my pirate ship now. This can obviously be used for a combat situation, and it will, but the reason that I have it set up tonight is just a visual aid. I just want my players to be able to see what the ship looks like, what kinds of things are going on there, so that they know what their options are. So once I've got my story in mind and I've got my NPCs kind of fleshed out a little bit so I know how to run them, and I have my descriptions of the location and I know what's there and how the players can interact with it, I also try to focus on the actual setting of where we're playing the game, because you have to have a physical location to play this game, unless you're playing online, which is a thing that people do now, and that's cool too. But for me, I like the face-to-face interaction of the game. I like the social elements. So I try to make sure that I bring people into a comfortable setting. Obviously, one of the most important things is to make sure that people aren't hungry or thirsty, so we've got snacks, drinks. I also try to focus a little bit on the lighting. My table has this cool element to it that it lights up, so if we're on the sea, I might use this kind of blue color. If we're in like the Abyss or the Nine Hells, I might switch it to a red. This is just kind of extra stuff, but you can do this with regular lighting or whatever, kind of create that environment for your players so that they can kind of feel immersed in it. Also, the music and sound helps with immersion. I use DMDJ to kind of create that immersive atmosphere, and I think it really helps with the sound effects and then the music when it's appropriate, to bring all that together to make your players really feel like they're in the game. All right, and finally, just the tools that I need to make sure that I have everything to be successful. I've got my GM screen, I've got this Game Mastery Combat Pad, which allows me to track initiative and that kind of thing. Really useful. I like to have my cards organized. I use the plot twist cards by Paizo. Those are fun little elements that can give your players a little bit more control of the story. And then just like item cards that I can hand out if I need to. These are fun. Of course, dice. Sometimes I need a timer because players aren't like super fast at making decisions. And then I find that just pulling out a timer helps to speed things up. Alright, so that's some of what I do to prepare for a game. I hope you found this useful. If you like it, and subscribe, and stay tuned for our next episode of Pieces of 8. I'm Jeremy Finn, thanks for watching.